welcome to Catch You Outdoors. I'm your host, Captain Rob Modes. This podcast is about living and playing in the Florida Keys. I cover my favorite sport, fishing, but also all the many things to see and do down here in the islands. Thank you so much for tuning in, and now it's time to kick back and relax with me in the Keys. This week's episode of Catch You Outdoors is number 182. Catch You Outdoors brought to you by Spotify and a whole bunch of other streaming podcast sites. This week's title, Another Cool Front. Yes, it was. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning into my podcast. First, a weather report. As the title of the podcast says, we had another cold front push through, which seems a bit late to me, but I have to keep reminding myself it's only March. So if the push of the front's big enough, it'll obviously make its way down here. And if not, it stops just short, but this one went right through. I have to give some prayers to the folks that got nailed in the recent tornadoes. I know how big storms feel, and the loss of life is tragic. While we had big winds here, at least we only suffered through a bunch of small branches and leaves in the yard again. And a surprising cool morning on Tuesday of 59 degrees, which is pretty chilly for us this time of year. I'm guessing the spring breakers were just a bit surprised when they woke up in the morning, popped on the bathing suits and went outside and went, whoa. Fishing took a serious back seat this past week. The only viable day for small boats was last Thursday, and I missed that window thanks to a very full calendar. However, this Thursday was a possibility. I'm recording this very late Wednesday, by the way. We've had a bunch of, we've just had some craziness. We've got fires, big fires going north of us. And so, you know, the fishing is definitely on a back seat. Actually, you can't hardly travel on our roads right now. Boating might probably not be a problem, but we're supposed to get winds again, which is causing the fires to get worse. So long story short, if you haven't been watching the news, we have fires that have shut down both roads that come and go from the Keys. So in other words, we're trapped. And anybody down here that's been trying to get to airports and stuff up north are trapped. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. So basically the 18-mile stretch was closed, almost all night last night. He opened it around, I think it was around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It started to move. It opened actually at 8 at night, but it was so backed up into the Keys that the cars didn't start to move until 2 a.m. And then once it got going, most people got out of here. And then again, they had to close it today, I think twice. So it's closed, open, closed, open. Card Sound Road, which is the alternative route, has been closed the entire time. The fire's right up against the road. It's been very dry here, people. We have not had any rain at all. We haven't had any. And a lot of folks interviewed are like, well, I don't understand. The ground's wet, right? It's a swamp. Yeah, you're right. But the top's not wet. So the top is burning, all of it. And the fire department, I just watched a recent story on the news. I'm doing this. What time is it now? It's 6:30. Wow. In the evening. The news just said that the fire department can't get into the swamp because their trucks and vehicles will sink. So they can only fight it from the roads. So what's burning is on top. And unfortunately, it's burning power lines. It's burning telephone poles. We lost our cable TV for all day. Well, no, I take that back. Late yesterday, all night, and all the way this morning until about 11 o'clock. They repaired a cable, but they sent us a note. This was Xfinity Comcast. They said, hey, it's probably not going to last. So enjoy it while you can, and we apologize. So whatever. We've been really lucky on the internet. The fiber has stayed up. I'm not sure how AT&T does that. I'm guessing it's underground, but I don't know that for sure. I believe that's how fiber's done. So the internet's been working okay. The power has blipped a couple times here. We do get some of our power from up north. So it's been pretty wild. So fishing is out again, folks. I'm not even going to attempt tomorrow. And then Friday we have another cold front. And Saturday and Sunday windy again. Yay. I woke up in the middle of the night 2 or 3 times to sirens. I mean, it's been normally here. It's extremely quiet at night. You go to bed 8, 9, 10 o'clock, whatever. It gets well. Hell, it doesn't get dark now at almost 9. Go to bed. Close the blinds, close your eyes, and you're out until tomorrow morning. But last night it was crazy. Just sirens and all kinds of crazy stuff. So no injuries have been reported. Fires have damaged a lot of stuff. Oh, and communication towers, by the way. It was mentioned that we lost a communication tower for a while. I don't know what the status on that is, and I don't know what it does. Probably phone calls. Let's see what else. I got some notes here. Oh, the fire. The Florida Highway Patrol says that this could burn for several days, and drivers should expect heavy delays in and out of the Keys as emergency crews work to fully contain the fire. Lord. That's okay. Gives us all time to get used to the time change. I don't know about you all, but I am not used to it. This one really, normally I don't, a day or two, yeah, it's okay. But this has been weird. Dark, really dark until 7 o'clock in the morning and light until almost 8. And of course, it's going to be a lot more than that. Hey, guess what? What is today? 19th. Let's see. You're listening to this on the 20th. So the first day of spring is on the 21st. Yippee-ki-yay. Oh my gosh. Spring has sprung across the nation. I was able to visit the new house location to do some serious measurements and to make arrangements for some sort of a storage shed in the backyard. I think I got that accomplished today. I got it all lined up, got delivery lined up, got people coming to build it. Believe it or not, I found a company in Fort Myers who does installations here in the Keys. I was like, well, that's great. And they know all the rules and regulations, and that's the important part. So tomorrow I've got to go scope out a concrete company to do a pad for me. But I'm making headway. So it was fun going back to the house. I have not been in the house since we went to look at it and decided we were going to rent it. And so this was a good trip because I went back. I pictured it as a lot smaller than it really is. It's got more room in it than I thought. So yay! It's still, honestly, y'all, it's still a cottage, but it's location. I'm so thrilled at where it is. Let's see. I just saw this in my email. There's a free freshwater fishing weekend on April 5th and 6th. Yeah, I know this doesn't really apply to those of us in the Keys, but it does for folks just a bit north that like to fish the canals, ponds, and lakes. Up in the Everglades, that area, no fishing license is needed, but all the rules and regulations will still apply. Thank you, Governor, for setting that up. I'm sure people that like freshwater fishing, take your kid fishing. Get out there and do it. You won't need to worry about your license, anybody's license. Just go out and take somebody fishing with you. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, by the way. I haven't mentioned red tide in a while, but noticed on the newest report that all areas of Florida are reporting a big drop in their readings, and that's a good thing. I'm wondering if the statewide drought we are experiencing may be helping with those numbers. I'm not sure, but it sure appears that way. Normally, red tide's associated with pretty big rainstorms, flooding rains, that kind of stuff. It's kind of tit for tat. It's almost like hand in hand, if you will. We haven't had that, obviously, and maybe that's part of it. A note about home rental and hotel stay pricing. Thought I'd hit this real quick since we get a lot of visitors down this way. I've noticed that the home pricing was dropping over the past year, if only just a bit, but they were going down. That seems to have settled here. Not going up, just sort of locked at a steady price. I've seen a few bump ups in home sale prices, but nothing to go, oh my gosh, that's a big jump. Just little bitty bouncing around stuff. Rent, however, is still high, but less expensive can be found if you hunt and have patience. Reality is, if you want to live in paradise, you're going to have to pay for it. I hate to say it that way, but it's true. A realistic budget is a really good idea. So in other words, if you can set it up so you have a budget in mind on exactly what you can and cannot spend, you might be able to pull it off. But I've seen quite a few people arrive here. We've talked to a lot of folks that we meet at the restaurants, bars, at festivals we go to. They're all tickled to be here, and they've all said the same thing. Man, it was hard, but we made it. And I think Jonelle and I pretty much feel the same way. The resort part of that, now, what can I say? They are expensive. A lot depends on where you stay, of course. The two highest are without a doubt Key West and Islamorada. And people are more than willing to pay for that stay. Marathon and Key Largo, they're a bit less and more affordable. But you don't quite get the atmosphere you get in Islamorada and especially down in Key West. So, your best bet, actually, if you're going to stay in the Keys, you want to do an extended stay, like a week or 2 weeks, it's probably Big Pine. And, down in Big Pine, you've got homes that are on the water, water access available too. Put a boat behind it if you want to. You save a bunch of money if you go in with friends because the homes are priced as a house that sleeps, 6 or 8 people. If you can get a couple families together, then you come out smelling like a rose. And you get access to the water. And Big Pine's a great place to be. I mean, really is. The Key Deer, they live there. Great restaurants, great places to hang out. It's off the beaten track, and you're really close to Key West. I think you're probably, I'm going to guesstimate on this, 30 miles to 28 miles or so down to Key West. So you can make a pretty easy Key West trip if you want to. So keep that in mind if you're coming down to the Keys. A lot of people focus on Key Largo, Islamorada, Marathon, and down to Key West. And reality is, Big Pine is something I think a lot of folks overlook. The people at Big Pine right now are going, shut up. Don't tell them. Let's see. Oh, another side note related to expenses. Gas is down. I don't know about you all, but we're paying well below $3 now. We're in the $2.80, $2.88, $2.89 range. And it stayed there. It didn't bounce around this time. So, and also boat fuel, that's the rec fuel that you put in boats, the non-alcohol stuff. $3.69 a gallon at the pump. You will pay more on the water at a marina. It'll be over $4. $4.29 has been what I've seen. Might be a little higher at some places, but that's a hell of a lot less than $5.99. And with gas prices below $3, that's a good news. Have eggs gone down? Yes, they have. Just thought I'd throw that out there. I want to give big thanks to the listeners of this podcast. This is something I put in my notes I want to say. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but my recent numbers shot way up to almost twice the listeners I had only a couple of months ago. Glad to see it, but I have no idea what happened. I figured it would take at least 3 to 4 years to get there. And it looks like I was right in that regard. I remember my radio days. The same number pretty much held true there as well. When I first started in radio, the numbers were good. They got a little better. And then all of a sudden, 3 or 4 years into the radio show, they took a huge jump. I did change the format. I changed what I talked about. I changed the approach of not all fishing all the time for 3 hours. And I think that had something to do with it, including the ladies, acknowledging the fact that ladies fish a lot and trying to get them involved in the show. So there were a lot of things that happened, but I'm happy to say that the podcast I just got my recent readout numbers from Spotify, and I went, what? So thank you all. Thank you very much. I have never looked for advertising. I'm happy to be able to remember the products that I enjoy without worrying about getting paid for something I really don't believe. And now I mean that kind of halfway. It's not like you're a crook or you're cheating the system, but we're in the guide business. You were sponsored by a lot of people, and so you're kind of dedicated to talking about the sponsorships and what you do with what you. And I believed in what I used. Don't get me wrong, but at times you wanted to talk about some of the product that you liked, and you were a little leery of doing so because you didn't want to offend the sponsor that you had. It's a difficult situation, and I know most guides can identify with this, and a lot of other people for that matter. But this enables me to talk about everything. Anything I run into I find interesting, I talk about. So thank you for allowing me to do that. And thank you for keeping my numbers up. It makes me happy. And no, I don't get paid for this. It just makes me happy to communicate. So there you go. Also, while I'm on that subject, a lot of really great people make a lot of really great outdoor stuff. And if you start to get yourself locked into one pair of pants, one shirt, one fishing item, one rod, one reel, look around. You'd be amazed what's out there. Matter of fact, it's kind of scary. And that's why I like being unencumbered by it. I really, really, really like doing what I do. I also got congratulated in several emails over the past several weeks of not doing politics. That's funny to me because I do a little bit when needed, but mostly only related to the environment, so I guess that's not edgy enough. Fishing regs, water quality, that kind of stuff. I have to tell you, living in the Keys is interesting when it comes to politics and policy. It's a very diversified population that seems to all get along. I've said this many, many times before on my podcast. The only issues we have is when someone shows up from up north and tells us what we should be doing. That doesn't go over very well down here. You'll get talked about if you do that, so don't. We know what our shortcomings are, by the way. We don't need to be told about it. Okay? Okay. So anyhow, tell your friends about the podcast. The more listeners, the better. And yes, it's a good place to promote my writing and my songs, and also promote the things that I believe will make your outdoor time a lot more fun here in the Keys. And speaking of music, I just received my most recent raw cut of a couple of new songs that should be mixed in out shortly. I'm pretty excited about them. We've been working on these things for about 4 months, so a lot has gone into this. I'm very, very lucky that Billy knows a lot of great artists, and one of them happens to play music with Joe Bonamassa. He's a sax player, and we needed a saxophone in the song I was working on, and I got a raw cut of that back and went, wow, that's great. So I'm really happy. I always like to say this with music. It takes a village. It really does. You can write a song, and you can get it down to where you really are happy with it. And then you turn it over to the producer, and he grabs it and says, let's do this, this, and this. And then he sends it out to all the different artists to play the parts on there, the bass, the drums, and sax, and guitar, and all the other things that you want to add to it. But it really takes a village. And it's wonderful to get the feedback from these people as the songs are written, songs are completed. It's a great big pat on the back, and I really love it. And it's instantaneous. I like writing books, but it takes a long time to get the book done and produced and printed and out. And music is a little different. So anyhow, it's all good. And I am really looking forward to getting these songs out to where you guys can listen to them. Spring break is winding down. Snowbirds and winter tourists will be headed home. We love your money, but also the quieter times that come when you've left. So, no, we'll miss you. Seriously, we'll miss you. It's fun. I mean, I love talking to people. When we go out to eat, there's always somebody sitting next to you, either at the bar or at a table, and they will invariably realize that you're local, and they'll ask you questions, and then the conversation starts. And I like that. Janelle and I both are both touristy, adapted people, and we like to tell people about what's going on down here and where to go and what to see. So that's kind of fun. Side note: NCAA basketball tournament. Oh my gosh, it's starting Thursday. That's time let's see. When you listen to this, it will be on at noon. That's the first bracket, so to speak, start on Thursday. And then it's heavy Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this weekend. It's big time basketball. Trying to weed out all the 64 teams and weed them down to, 64, half of that's 32, and then the 16. It's going to happen really quick. Although March Madness has happened a lot later than I'm used to. I filled out a bracket, but really only for me. I used to play it several years ago, but not so much lately. I'll pat myself on the back. I was pretty good at it, but I'm a college basketball fan, so I kind of understand the game and understand the coaches and understand the teams and also understand this is most important. If you guys are going to fill out a bracket for the NCAA, and you have time now, if you listen to this early on Thursday, you got time to do this, and if not, just for fun, always pay attention to the location of where the early games are played. Remember, they parcel these games out all over America. So you can have a team like a UCLA team playing all the way over on the East Coast for some dumb reason, but that's how it happens. And the same thing happens with East Coast teams. They get shipped west. So you're dealing with young people. These people are 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. They're getting sent 3 time zones away, and they have to adapt to that and play like an evening. You can just imagine how hard that would be on anybody. So keep that in mind. When you're making brackets up, I always look at the teams themselves, the record that they have, their ranking, where do they get placed, who are they playing, and where are the teams from? Are they playing completely out of sorts, or are they playing local? That's a crazy important thing. My Final Four this year, I'll give it away. Michigan State, Duke, Florida, and Tennessee. Those are the 4 teams that I really think have a good chance. That's Michigan State. I know it's hard for me to say that. I'm not a big Michigan State fan, but I admit they got a good team this year. Duke, Florida, of course, I'll be pulling hard for Florida, and Tennessee. We shall see what happens. Again, play begins on Thursday afternoon. I think the first game's around 12:30 in the afternoon. Fishing. I've been doing more fishing reading than actually fishing. I hope to change that. I really do. I don't think Thursday. I originally in my notes said I'm going to try Thursday or Friday. That seems to be completely out of the question now. I've already mentioned why. I might be able to squeeze it in before the next cool front on the following week. We just have to kind of see how it goes. I'm getting dreadfully close to this move date of April the 1st. The reading part has actually been pretty good. I don't get to sit down and grab the magazines that I get in the mail very often, so I have been catching up with a small stack of those magazines, and they've been ignored. I admit it. I've had a few interesting tests in one of them on fishing line and the push to go lighter and lighter, and the article is basically how it may not be the best thing for most anglers, and for some of us, it's true, but certainly not all. Let me explain. The push to lightweight braid has been out there. Braid is normally when people use braid, they're in the 20-pound range. That just seems to be the go-to size for braid. And I remember 20-pound is extremely skinny in braid. It's not like monofilament. Okay, so I think the equivalency is like 8-pound test mono. So it's very light and very small. The reason that a lot of us went down to 10, we originally tried 15 and went to 10, is casting distance. You're throwing thread. It's extremely skinny and it goes really far when you toss it. Which here in the Florida Keys, where you deal with a lot of very clear water, trying to get the bonefish permit and this spooky fish, being able to throw it far is important, especially with a lightweight jig and shrimp or a lightweight tiny little lures. But a great many anglers have a really hard time. This was mentioned in the article, and I agree, have a hard time with wind knots and all kinds of problems with lightweight braid, 15 and 10 especially. It's so light that when you throw it from a spinning rod, the line keeps coming off the spool. And as you close the bail on it, whether it's by hand or with a handle, I don't agree with handle shuts. I like to do it by hand on the bail. When you shut it, you tend to get a little loop. You get an ear, and then you reel over the ear, and your next cast is a disaster, bird's nest. And the reason it's worse that way is because the line's so light and small. Once it grabs, man, it's over. You're pretty much pulling it off till you get down to where the ear was and starting over. If that happens to you with 20-pound test, you at least have a chance of untangling it. So I want to point out that what I gathered from the article, and I think was worthy of passing on, was that some of us should not use lightweight. It's especially brutal on windy days, which we have had more than our share of. If the wind's at your back and you throw a lightweight line, it really does fly. There's no doubt about it. But guess what? When it hits the water, it keeps on flying off the spool. And if you're not paying attention and you close the bail on it, you're going to get a great big old, dog ear on there. And that's going to cause a serious problem the next time you cast. So I would recommend, if you're new to braid or if you're fishing in windy conditions, stick with 20. Go with 20 pound. It'll alleviate a lot of the issues and problems you have with bird's nest and backlashes and all that kind of fun stuff. As you get more and more experience fishing, you start to understand the ramifications of wind and what it will do to your line after you finish casting, and you become more experienced of looking down at the reel to make sure that ear is not hanging off when you close the bail, then fine. It will certainly increase your casting distance, and it will fight just about any fish. 10-pound test does not mean you can only catch 10-pound or less fish. That just means that, you can tug on it pretty hard, but a fish doesn't weigh anywhere near its out of water weight as it does when it's in the water. So keep that in mind also. Cost, that was also brought up in the article, and I thought that was worth talking about. Braid's expensive, and it's gotten worse. I kept thinking braid would come down in price, but manufacturing of braid is very difficult. It's not one of these, they can make 10 tons of this stuff. And so the cost of it is high. And there's, mono hasn't gotten more expensive. Mono has stayed the same. A nice spool of mono costs you $6 or $7. Same thing in braid will cost you $25 to $30. It's a big difference. Now, granted, braid lasts a lot longer. You can cast it for way more times and fish with it more. But the initial expense is kind of high. And if you get a bird's nest, well, you've just blown the whole thing. So for those of you that are mono users and you insist on using it, go for it. If you're happy with it, if you can feel the bite and you're content with it, I'm not going to say don't do it. I've used braid so long now, I have a hard time going back to mono. Monofilament also provides stretch. Now, that can be good and bad. It's bad when you're trying to feel a bite. Sometimes you don't feel a bump, especially when you got a lot of line out. But if you get a big fish on, it's a built-in shock absorber. So it makes catching big fish, I think, a whole lot easier. And it's more forgiving. When you get a big fish up and it's jumping, wagging its head, doing some crazy stuff, and you're yanking on it when you probably shouldn't be, you're going to get that extra shock absorber in there. It's going to save you some pain in the long run. So keep all that in mind. I just wanted to touch on that. It was a really interesting article, and I thought it was really cool, worth relating. I don't want to talk about the magazine and article because I don't want somebody going, hey, man. So anyway, as I find these things, I'll be happy to report about them. And hopefully, I can get back out there on the water pretty soon. And now it's time for a little bit of useless information.
And now, from the original book of useless information.
You are a reject! You are useless! You can get a job down here cleaning toilets!
Here's your host, Captain Rob Modies.
Well, he swears up and down he's useless.
He might be all right eventually, but completely useless.
With useless information.
From the section called Entertainment, Nick Mason is the only member of Pink Floyd to appear on all of the band's albums. I'm a Floyd fan. I didn't know that. The 1980 song Rosanna was written by actress Rosanna Arquette. The band Duran Duran got their name from a character in the 1968 Jane Fonda movie, Barbarella. The Beach Boys formed in 1961, and here's a bonus one for you. The Grateful Dead were once called the Warlocks. And that's all for this week. And before I go, here are some final words. This is a short one, people. Just a heads up, there's a good possibility there will be no podcast on Thursday, April 3rd. The first and second will be pretty nuts with moving, and there are lots of loose ends to be tied up on those 2 days. I'm not even sure I'll have access to the web until the first week of April, so no worries. I'll catch you up on the following week if necessary, but I'll still try to get her done on time, if possible. I haven't missed one yet, so this might be the first. Y'all take care. I'll talk to you later. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed listening, please subscribe to the podcast channel and tell a friend. Facebook page is Catch You Outdoors. Website's catchyoutdoors.com, where you can find all the previous podcasts and news about my books and my music. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.